had this very intimidating meeting with Anna Wintour early on in my career. I immediately, when I got in the room, I thought, I'm going to have to leave the room in 2.5 minutes. I only have a little bit of time. And so she was like, Cassandra, okay, so what is your plan? I was like, well, I have a plan to make a plan.
I'm Sammi Cohen, and this is Social Currency, a podcast that unpacks the stories that are shaping business, culture, and the intersection of the two. I started creating content because I am obsessed with investigating how people and brands build social currency. I want to know the secrets of influencing culture and the decisions people make to buy or engage or follow. Cassandra Grey, my guest today, is the perfect person to share these secrets. Cassandra is your favorite beauty tastemaker's favorite beauty tastemaker. Cassandra started her brand Violet Grey over a decade ago. You'll hear Cassandra describe it like the Net-a-Porter of beauty, and her entrepreneurship story is fascinating. She launched her brand, grew a cult following, she sold her company to Farfetch in 2022, and then she bought it back in 2024. We talk about the standout lessons from the acquisition, her early meetings with Anna Wintour and Gwyneth Paltrow, and how to find your aesthetic as a brand. This is Cassandra Grey's Social Currency. Cassandra Grey, welcome to Social Currency.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I want to start by saying that you have such incredible taste and an amazing eye for editorial. So do you have an early memory that you can share of when you started being drawn to that world? Because I'm picturing you as a little kid, cutting up magazines and creating collages.
Yeah. I did not see a magazine until I was a teenager. I had a very unconventional childhood. I lived on a farm. I lived on a Native American reservation in a teepee. I was homeschooled until I was 14. My mother was very beautiful and just like pure soul, but not glamorous in the way that you might think I would be influenced by, and didn't care, all natural, didn't care about hair or makeup. I didn't even discover that until I was a teenager, and my first introduction to glamour was my grandmother, my late grandmother, and she was always dressed and wore gloves every day and always had her hair done. And I just thought that was like nothing I'd ever seen before.
She sounds extremely chic.
Yeah, she was chic.
So when you did eventually find this world
Yes.
of glamour, of beauty, of fashion, was there a specific magazine that you were drawn to or an aesthetic that really pulled you in?
I mean, this is probably going to be very poignant because it was old vintage Playboy magazines is somehow I got my hands on, and the writing and the sort of unapologetic sex appeal, and then French Vogue and W magazine I worshipped, and then a lot of books. And I love art and artists, and particularly sculptors and contemporary artists. And I'm of the age where we didn't always have Pinterest or the internet. Yeah. And so it was like you got lost in books.
I want to talk about Violet Grey. We're going to fast forward to 2013-ish. You see this white space for creating a platform that combines the experience of perusing one of these great magazines with online shopping for beauty.
That is a direct quote from Natalie Massenet, who at the time was the only one doing content and commerce. Content and commerce people were, what is that?
Yes.
And I was like, and I would try to explain, well, I want to tell stories, and I also want to make art that influences purchase behavior, and they're like, huh? How do you make money? And I was like, okay, it's the net-a-porter of beauty. And then they got it, you know?
You always need that disclaimer, like, you know how people have always said it's the Uber for blah, blah, blah. You were the net-a-porter for beauty.
Yes. Great. And she said that in a magazine, in an interview. She said she was fascinated by, or on a mission to combine two addictive activities, combing through a magazine and shopping. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what I want to do in beauty.
So when you have identified this space and that moment resonates with you, you write a business plan.
Yes.
What was that initial business plan like?
Okay, in my teenage years, I grew up in San Francisco. So my father always lived in San Francisco. I've traveled all around with my mother and moved back with my father when I was about 13, 14. Okay, so San Francisco, everyone has a business plan. Like in LA, everyone has a script. I say this all the time, but it's really true. And URLs, and there's so many young entrepreneurs, and it was a time. It was the beginning of the .com boom, and it was a time where entrepreneurship was, like the equivalent of rock stardom. So yeah, I felt like I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I thought that entrepreneurs write business plans. They write business plans, and they reserve URLs. So I have an extraordinary collection of URLs. So I wrote a lot of business plans, and even I didn't go to business school. I hardly graduated high school, but I had a friend who was going to the Haas School of Business in Berkeley, which is one of the great schools.
That's where I went.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, for my MBA. Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so you might know this. So they had a business plan competition, and they could collaborate with civilians that did not go to the school or that hardly graduated high school. So my friend collaborated with me because I was always the sort of entrepreneur having all these ideas, and we won the competition together. Wow. So that's, I think, how I kind of first sort of learned maybe how to structure a business plan, but really it's just 7 pages. And so I did so many. And so I wrote the business plan for Violet Grey when I was still living in New York. And it was, content and commerce. And there was the market opportunity, which was large. And beauty was particularly exciting because it was sort of recession resilient and like food, and that so much of the business is replenishment. So you don't have to keep convincing people to buy things. Yep. And it's utilitarian, and it has fashion. I mean, it just has all the things. And I think about beauty not just as a, consumer category, but as a, way of life.
Your plan was always to start with e-commerce first and then expand into brick and mortar. Why both?
So I said I had a business plan, which was, how much money do I need to start, and what's the big opportunity? And, okay, I need this amount of money, and then there's this amount of money that we could have a potential. That's the business plan. Yeah. But I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really understand. I was very naive, which I think is a good and a bad thing, because you just go for it, and you kind of maybe are more trusting of your intuition versus what you maybe know. But it was really funny. I had this very intimidating meeting with Anna Wintour early on in my career. And she had just done this story about me, which essentially put me on the map. And it was the Vogue effect, and no one was paying attention. And then suddenly I was, worthy of their attention. Yeah. And so I had a meeting with her. And I think I requested the meeting. I don't even know how I had a meeting with her and how I even thought that I could have a meeting with her. But I went to her office, and she's very prompt. She's on time. She was in the room. Immediately when I got in the room, I thought, I'm gonna have to leave the room in 2.5 minutes. I only have a little bit of time. And so she was like, Cassandra, okay, so what is your plan? I was like, well, I have a plan to make a plan. And that was what I said, and that was true. So I knew that I needed a plan, but I started without a plan. So I just started, and then I made a plan. And that's what a lot of, I don't recommend this. I think it's much easier to have a plan before you get started, because once you, especially today when you unleash on social media and you are, in a direct conversation with your colleagues, your team, your customers, your investors, like all the people that you need to be able to do the things you want to do, it doesn't give you a lot of time to think about strategy or how you're going to do this.
Now, when you were envisioning the strategy, the brick and mortar portion of that, though, was that really fundamental to the vision early on of what Violet Grey would become?
We always envisioned that we would have a shop. And a lot of, like, what I did have was a lot of vision and a lot of mood boarding and guidelines around the voice and the point of view. And that's really how I was able to build, because, it's all about the people that you attract. And in my experience, the kind of people that I have gotten to work with, they need vision. Like, they need to really believe in your vision, which means you need to believe in your vision. And if you don't believe in your vision, then why would anyone else take it seriously? So I was very obsessed with my vision and very clear on it. And so, yeah, I always imagined that there would be, I don't think I called it brick and mortar. I called it, the Violet Grey was often, we talked about old guard glamour and standards, like through this sort of modern fashion lens. Mm-hmm. So e-commerce, obviously very modern to be able to like shop with your phone and online. And then the brick and mortar or shops I loved were like the old Dior salons in Paris or the Jar jewelry store. I don't know if you've ever been there, but he doesn't let very many people in there, but I somehow got in there. But that's a phenomenal place. But it's very much about, not about shopping, much more about experiencing the point of view and the authenticity of why you exist and, an embodiment of that point of view and in the environment. That's what I wanted to achieve, like with everything. Like what is old guard glamour, and then what is the modern fashion lens that we can sort of have both with almost everything that we do.
With that context, I want to talk about the products. Tell me about the Violet Code.
The Violet Code was in the original mood board. So yeah, I say I don't have a plan, but I had a lot of courage and of conviction and sort of all of what needed to be done to be able to be the trusted source. Like in my mind, I was like, okay, I need to build a point of view that emotionally connects with human beings, and not just any human beings, but discerning human beings that only the best will do. And I think everyone is a luxury consumer. So I think that everyone is like, there's not people that are like, oh, I'll just take the second best. Like you might do it because you can't get to it or can't afford it or whatever, but everyone wants the best. And in beauty, the best doesn't always mean it's the most expensive. It's about vetting. It's about, efficacy. So I wanted to garner the trust of this very discerning consumer and also the affection and advocacy. And so I didn't really know how I was going to do that because it was so saturated. So the problem to solve, like a lot of people when they tell you how to make a business plan, you're meant to have a problem and a solution. So the problem I thought to solve was there's just way too much to choose from. And where's the good stuff? So I didn't really know how to do that. So I thought we need to curate with some sort of criteria. And we created the Violet Code. And at the time, my team around me was like, okay, you got the Violet Code, you got Violet Grey, you've got the Violet Files. Like, this is too many things, too much messaging. And I was like, no, we have to have the Violet Code. That's the whole thing. That is the thing. And so, so the Violet Code. So what that meant was, what happened is I wrote this business plan when I was in New York. And I moved to LA for my now late husband. And I got this sort of front row seat to Hollywood and really the industry, which I knew. I mean, in fact, I've done some photo shoots and things like that in New York, so I know makeup artists and hairstylists, and like these are, my heroes, and I just love them so much. I love that whole community of artists and image makers. But in Los Angeles, I sort of thought Hollywood was kind of gauche. Like I was like, oh, it's not that cool. It's not fashion. It's not French Vogue. But really, when you start to dig in, so many of the images, like as I became a teenager, and I was that girl ripping out. I mean, ruled by images. Like I have so many tear sheets, And I realized like so many of the images that really inspired me and ruled me came from Hollywood, from maybe a lot from French cinema, but Hollywood. And like Marilyn Monroe being the most famous of like she was Norma Jean, and then she's got a hairstylist and a makeup artist, and she's got a mole and a bottle of bleach, and she's fucking Marilyn Monroe, So when I was exposed to all of this, I was exposed to the red carpet and the glam teams. Like it was always like hair and MU, and I was like, what is MU? And is it makeup or just glam? I didn't understand what glam was. Everyone has glam, obviously. And the red carpet, those images, whether they're on a cover of a magazine or a red carpet, they're often representing multi-billion-dollar franchises. And so the skincare matters, the eyebrow matters, the hair matters. They're influencing beauty practices and purchases around the world. And so there's the star, and then there's the whole team behind the star. And the whole team behind the star, at the time, this was like sort of just at the beginning of Instagram. So they were, kind of unknown. And so I thought about these image makers, makeup artists, hairstylists, nail artists. Now it's like plastic surgeons, dermatologists, like meditation gurus, like there's everything. I thought about them. I thought, oh, they're like the new chefs. Because at the time it was like celebrity chef was a new thing. And I was like, these people have a lot of authority, and they are the best beauty editors in the world because they have to edit all the products to fit into this little suitcase to take to the client's house to schlep around LA to do their hair and makeup, to go, and it might be the biggest night of their career, like if they're going to the Oscars or something. So this, like, they gotta have the right products. So I was like, what's in the kit?
I want to talk about another player in the space. Gwyneth Paltrow obviously has Goop. Goop is in the beauty space, and the two of you seem to have an incredibly supportive relationship. Can you tell me about that first call that you had with her when you were ideating the initial idea for Violet Grey, and any advice that she gave you that stuck with you?
Oh my God. So Gwyneth Paltrow, Goop was like Net-a-Porter. Goop was another huge inspiration, and how she built it, that it was so authentic, and it was all about curation. And it was like an email newsletter for a really long time before it became, before I think she even monetized it. So it was very authentic and very real, and she really was on the hunt for everything, really defined wellness to share with her friends or her audience. So yeah, at the time, Tracy Jacobs was one of her agents, and Tracy Jacobs was a friend of mine. And, I asked Tracy if she could arrange a call, and I'm sure she gets this all the time. So it took a little while, but eventually, Tracy asked her, and I think she was very happy to have the call with me. And yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday, because we had a little tiny office, and I was in the closet basically, because that was the only private area. And yeah, what she said largely was how excited she was for me, because she could hear in my voice that I was, going to do this very courageous thing, which was pursue something that's on like a chicken scratch paper and make it real. And then we talked a lot about curation and how that's really the future of shopping and what the customer really wants more than anything else.
In 2022, Violet Grey was acquired by Farfetch. Were you always building Violet Grey? And I think I know what the answer is here, but I want to hear from your perspective. Were you always building it with an exit in mind?
No, there was no exit in mind. I mean, in the beginning, meeting with investors, I did raise money. Like I was constantly raising money because I was constantly on the verge of bankruptcy. And, I really believed in content first and community building and art and all of that and establishing, the authenticity of the point of view and the why. And that doesn't always line up with your revenue. So I would have done that differently because it's really not fun to raise money when you need money. Mm-hmm. People don't want to give you money when you need money. If you don't need money, it's like they're throwing at it like you're on a stripper pole. Like it is crazy, the difference. In the beginning, I remember there was all this lingo and like I didn't even know like exit strategy and like M&A, and I didn't even know like CAC to LTV ratio. Like I had to Google these things after meetings with people. So no, I did not have an exit strategy. I was doing like a test or something, and like what motivates you, and I realized a lot of the traits of ADHD, I might have them, Mm-hmm. So, and one of them is like what motivates you, and urgency and deadlines motivate me much more than the result. And I realized that. It was like an epiphany. So my co-founder, Ariella Feldman, I had two co-founders, Ariella Feldman and Tiffany Bensley, and they were, that was really the best time of my career, was building with them. And Ariella was very pragmatic, very smart, and she was more operations, and Tiffany was more brand building and story build and PR, communications, all that. And Ariella would say to me all the time, Cassandra, done is better than perfect. So if it were up to me, like I would never put anything out because nothing is ever good enough, and it's still never good enough. But you got to just put it out there, and then it can just keep getting better and iterate and feel comfortable. And also there's something, that's what really connects with consumers and is the humanity of that, because perfection is not real. So it's about progress, and it's about expressing yourself. And, I think your community and the people that you work for essentially, love to be a part of that process where they don't want you to know everything that you're doing. Like they don't expect you to know everything that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. What was the biggest takeaway from that acquisition?
Well, at the time, my husband had just passed away, and I was living in LA, and my whole childhood was about getting to New York, and my husband was from New York, and we lived in LA, but we were often in New York, and I really wanted to go back to New York. And yeah, I was really ready for a new chapter, and I always felt like I had to be in LA, and I had to be in our office in the trenches with the team, because it was authentic to who we were, because that was, Violet Grey was born out of Hollywood beauty culture. And so it was the right timing. And so the biggest takeaway is that I think, God or the universe or whatever your idea of that is, shows up when you ask for help. And I needed a break from the responsibility. I was burnt out. Mm-hmm. I needed a new chapter. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of the biggest takeaway, is that the timing of it was divine.
When Farfetch acquired Violet Grey, you were still involved with the business.
Oh, yes.
So you felt as if you had this opportunity to step back a bit, but you were still very much guiding directionally, right?
I had this delusion, which I really believe in delusion, so this is good. But I was like, okay, now I am going to be talent. I do not want to be managing people. I do not want to be putting out fires. I like some of the entrepreneurship, but I'd rather like mentor new entrepreneurs coming up. I want to be talent. And like, to me, that meant Ralph Lauren. I want to like have vision and not be distracted with P&Ls and any of this stuff that is not about creating value in people's lives and beauty and art. And that's what I wanted to do. So Farfetch was very much like, we want you to do that. And we're going to surround you with the best and all the infrastructure and the team. And you are just going to do what you do. And we think you're brilliant and you go. And I was very ambitious. I mean, I'm still very ambitious, but I imagined that this small, community with this very trusted point of view that was only distributed in the US, that we were going to be able to, scale on this global platform that was Farfetch at the time. Like, Farfetch was #1 in luxury fashion at the time. So this was very exciting. And I was like, let's go. We're going to be #1 in beauty. We're going to bring it all around the world. And yeah, I very quickly I realized like my entrepreneurial spirit and maybe delusion, they didn't really know what to do with.
And then that leads us to 2024.
Yes.
Where you buy the business back.
Yes.
Or, as you brilliantly put it, the brand was returned to sender. I loved that so much.
Thank you.
Tell me that story.
After we were acquired, I really tried. Like, I was attending a lot of Zoom meetings because everybody was all over the place. They had like 7,000 employees. And then at a certain point, I realized I really can't add value or make an impact in this kind of an environment. And so I transitioned into an advisor. And then from that point on, it was very clear that, I was protecting the relationships, the platform, the point of view. So many of our brand partners are small, emerging entrepreneurs like me in the beginning. So it was like, it was, for a lot of them, we're their only door, and it's a big deal. And I wanted to make sure that was protected. It became really clear that, I don't think they intended to do this, but it was neglected. It was stranded and wasn't resourced. And miraculously, Sarah Brown, who was a longtime colleague, and I have so much respect for her, she was really protecting the brand. And it wasn't like they were doing anything to sort of mess it up. They just weren't paying attention to it. Mm-hmm. So it was like stranded out here. Mm-hmm. And clearly like someone needed to buy it. And it took me a really long time to determine whether I knew that I was committed to making sure that it was in the right hands. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know if those would be my hands or a combination or whatever. And the whole vision, which I had a lot of courage of conviction about, was to sort of build this platform and this trusted source that we could then build brands on top of, which is what we did. And we did it with so many brands. I mean, it's countless brands. And Augustinus Bader is probably the best example of one that we really got behind. And that was very exciting to be a part of the sort of incubation and introduction of a new brand to our customer. And wanted to do more of that. So the whole idea was that we have this committee of experts that have the authority to deem products best in class, and a lot of them have gone on to launch their own brands, like Gillian Dempsey or Farrah Homedy or Charlotte Tilbury. Like, these are all artists that contributed to Violet Grey early on that now have brands, which is really cool. So yeah, the idea is like when we can't find it, we want to be able to incubate it or get behind it. So,
and that part of the business is called Violet Labs, right?
Yes.
So what are you looking for when you are going to be taking a brand in to incubate? Do you have a set of specific criteria? Is it more of a feeling that you get when you try a product?
What's Violet Lab coded? Like, we just changed the Violet code approved to Violet coded, because that's like what all the kids are saying. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Look, with everything for me is I am most satisfied, I guess, or maybe divinely discontent with art, an artistic point of view. And consumer brands really have that. And so I like the same kind of like Violet Code approval process or criteria with developing incubating brands, acquiring brands, investing in brands, getting behind brands. It's just very simple to me. It's like, are they operating from the why? Are they making something, creating something that adds value to people's lives and that garners the trust and affection and advocacy of the most discerning consumer? And it's like very simple, but very hard to do because you actually have to embody all of those things and you have to check all the boxes. You can't just have a few things that the customers want. You have to have everything that they've come to expect and more.
Yeah. I've read that it's a goal to open up around 20 new stores of Violet Grey over the next 3 to 4 years, which is major. Yeah. So is there anything that you're seeing on your side that's driving that massive push into retail?
In this career chapter, I am, hell-bent on being talent. So I don't want to manage people. I don't want to manage a P&L. I don't want to raise money, although I am doing a lot of that, but in the beginning. But so with Violet Grey, I ultimately made the decision, very thoughtful, long decision, to buy it back, but in partnership with Sharif Gurgis, who we spent a lot of time together. And I said, listen, I don't want to run and scale this business. I feel like I've built the brand, or we've built the brand. There's a blueprint there. You are young and ambitious and super smart, and like you could do this. So that was why I partnered with him. He comes from a banking background, lots of analysis of data, and the data suggests that retail is back, and there's a particular multi-brand beauty retail really is delivering on convenience for the customer. It's almost like a convenience store or grocery store. Like it's you could have one at every 10-block radius, and it would be, the customer would be thrilled.
Yes.
So I think I have always thought about retail as, first of all, retail is just not a sexy word. I call it in real life experiences. And I've always thought about it as storytelling and customer acquisition and marketing, even though I don't like that word, communication arts. So I think that in this particular category, I think I don't know, last time I checked, it was still like 65% of the business is happening offline. People like to get things right away. They like to try things. And then also, I think the number one thing is it's fun.
Yeah.
It's entertainment, and people, especially now with just like everybody's in the closet in an avatar talking to robots, like they want human connection. So the retail, the brick and mortar that we've created, again, like my early obsession with Playboy, and Playboy was very cool, and the writing was incredible, and the art and the photographers, it was incredible. Then it kind of went a little weird, and as things happened with reality TV and all that. But the Playboy mansion, to me, was like, I always think about the Violet Grey stores as the Playboy mansion to the Playboy brand. Wow. Like they're cultural hubs. Everyone's invited. But yes, it's meant to be a place that celebrates the image makers and the experts and the artists and the artistry that is often displayed on these, very famous faces. So it's glamorous and fun. So I think that creating that kind of environment that is much more like going to your friend's apartment if your friend was, knew everything about skincare and, Guy Bourdin and fashion books.
What types of brands or founders or aesthetic trends are you watching really closely right now?
I love this brand. I think about it like a brand called Dumois. Do you know Dumois?
Of course.
Okay, I love Dumois. She sort of came up No one knows who she is. She's got an incredible strategy. It's really just her.
Yeah.
And she built this whole thing, and it's so refreshing and fun because it's like Gossip Girl. And it's a media empire.
Yeah.
And it's going places. Like, she's written a book. It's like she sold it to HBO or whatever, Netflix or something. She's got merch, and she's got a fragrance that's really good.
I actually had no idea about the fragrance.
Well, I'm going to tell you about it right now. And we just launched it at Violet Grey. And yeah, I like when people disrupt industry and it's so authentic. And she had this like really big kind of career where she was starting to do this on Instagram and built this whole world. And like, if she talks about a restaurant, like, you can't get a reservation at that restaurant anymore. And it's the same with beauty also. Her audience is very interested in what celebrities are using. So I think that's a sort of newer brand that I really think is very cool. And then, I'm classic. Like, I worship Hermes and Chanel and Laura Piana and Asprey and Sotheby's and Christie's, and I worship all of that stuff. So, and Apple too, But yeah, I think the newer brands. I mean, I'm an angel investor too, so I'm an angel investor in Farrah Homedy, which is one of our color cosmetics brands that we have at Violet Grey, which I love, and I love her. And there's just so many people trying to get rich in beauty, because apparently you can build a brand in 3 years and sell it for $1 billion. Shout out Haley.
I want to ask you about
that. I love it. I loved it from the beginning. I love her. It just felt very authentic in the way she built it on social media, and just clearly she's really obsessed with skincare and beauty and style and cool and cultural relevant. It's just really great. I see brands every day, decks of new brands, and wanting advice or wanting for us to distribute them or whatever. And so much of it is just flimsy and not real. And so clearly an exit strategy.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that the key is just authenticity.
Can you share any systems that you have in place? And it can be systems for anything, but systems that benefit either your career or business.
What I've learned the hard way, like when I was starting out, I wanted to build a brand. I remember my father was like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "I want to build a brand." And it was like a dream world and an artistic point of view. And I did not realize that I also needed to build a business, which is different. And so there's the artistic point of view, and then there's a business. And a business is people. And it's a group of people. And it's really it's all that matters. And it's what is going to really make you fulfilled. And I get emotional because, to me, success is attracting extraordinary people. And like that they want to work with you and build with you. I think, I'm not very good at systems, but I'm very good at people and attracting exceptional people. And I have just, the people around me are so smart and energetic and encouraging and ambitious and want to learn, and I get to learn from them. So I feel like, if we think about building our teams much more like how people think about building sports teams, it's in the sort of team, like it's just all about the team, the culture, like why are you there? What are you doing together? Celebrating the wins, crying together. Like there's just nothing like it.
Yeah.
So if you're like me and are not very good at systems, you attract people that are, which I have done. And people just have really taken care of me throughout my career.
I think what you spoke to really is powerful because, I mean, even titans of business, right? They are able to identify their strengths, their weaknesses, and then you build the team around what you are not physically capable of doing, right? And I think it's just, you are so dead center on knowing yourself, your strengths, what you bring to the table as an entrepreneur, as a founder and a visionary. So I think that's absolutely a system, understanding the fact that you are really fabulous at certain things, and then you need the structure that other people provide to help create that business versus the vision.
Yeah.
I want to end with some advice. So this question came in from the audience for you. From your experience building Violet Grey and curating this luxury platform that you've built, how do you recommend that founders get in touch with their editorial or creative vision if this is not something that comes naturally to them?
I mean, my late husband, love of my life, father of my child, he was in the movie and film business, and he would never give a compliment that wasn't real. And he obviously adored me and loved me, but he gave me this compliment once that he said, that I had a really good eye. And it meant so much to me because, he was like working with Martin Scorsese and like all the greats of storytellers. And so I think the eye is the thing. And when it doesn't come naturally to you, I really believe that every artistic instinct or the intuition that I have had, the really good stuff, comes from my idea of God. So I think we can all tap into it, and I think it's there all the time. It's like Wizard of Oz. So I think if you can get the answers, and I think when building a consumer brand and a story and a distinct point of view, there's this like some kind of pretentious thing, but it's so great. It's like perfection is not when there's more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. So I think if you're what is my point of view and who am I and what do I like, what am I attracted to, it's so good to create a good old-fashioned mood board and then narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down. And the tighter that your guidelines are, first of all, it'll be much easier, and it also works because you think about, I think Warhol's probably the best example. Most people know what a Warhol looks like, right? There are a lot of Warhols that do not look like Warhols, right? The Warhols that look like Warhols are the same. It's iconography. So I think if you can really understand what it is that is speaking to you and that you really love, whether it's a color or a font or a content franchise or, I don't know, a real franchise, whatever it is, and you just stick to it and just get, like, that's your thing.
Yeah.
And make sure you feel like that is authentic to who you are. And I think we can all tap into that. It's trust. It's about trust.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing takeaway because it gives hope to people who may not feel like they naturally ooze that sense of creativity, but it's a reminder, like, you probably do have it if you tap into.
You have it.
Whatever
We know.
You call that
we
higher
know
source.
what we are attracted to. We know what it's like. Most people, they know what music they like. They know what songs they like. It's the same thing. It's like, why do you like that song? It's like the same thing is gonna happen when you look at a color or a font or a story or treatment or packaging or whatever it is you're building. The same thing will happen. You just need to trust your intuition. Because the authenticity of that, and don't worry about what other people are gonna like, because that's not, like, how could you possibly know? You just have to know what you like and what feels right to you, and you'll know. You just know. Like you just know if you quiet it all down, and you're like, okay, yeah, I know. what that is.
Cassandra.
Yes, Sammi.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
I am going to link the handles to yourself on Instagram, Violet Grey, so everyone has access. And for everyone who's watching and or listening, you have to check out Cassandra on Instagram. It's really a joy to witness your creative expression. And I mean that in the most genuine, authentic way. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've been looking forward to this for so long.
I mean, I too. I've been following you since the beginning, and I think you're so curious and smart, and I'm just so happy to be here. And I think Instagram and just life right now, when it's seemingly like the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Glamour. There's so much value in glamour.
There is.
And creating moments in your environment and in your relationships. And, there's so much is out of our control. So I just feel like art will save us all. Like, just surround yourself with beauty and build things and be curious and, don't be scared to fall, because that's where the good stuff is. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Social Currency. I've been wanting to launch this show for so long. I can't tell you how excited I am to do this and how thrilled I am that you're actually here listening. It means the world to me. If you liked what you heard today, please rate and review the podcast, because it massively helps to support the work I do to bring the show to life. And if you want to keep up with the hottest business lore in real time, follow me on Instagram at Sammi Cohen Talks and subscribe to my newsletter, Social Currency, which is linked in the show notes. Social Currency is a production of Social Currency Media and Money News Network. The podcast is hosted and executive produced by me, Sammi Cohen. Social Currency is produced by the Money News Network team. See you next time.